After 6 times crazy inmates begged for the death penalty, starting with Stephen Lorenzo, who was being charged in a Florida courtroom for the 2003 torture and murder of 2 gay men. In 2003, Lorenzo was found guilty of drugging, torturing, murdering, and dismembering Michael Wacholtz and Jason Galehouse. Prosecutors say he and co-defendant Scott Schweikert targeted gay men to use as slaves. Schweikert pleaded guilty and agreed to work with prosecutors in their case against Lorenzo, but after spending 20 years in prison, when he was back in court and being sentenced to the death penalty, the unexpected happened.
The sooner that I get euthanized, as far as I'm concerned, the faster I can get, the sooner I can get, fetch myself a new body and come back again, a fresh body. That's how I look at it, because that's how it is. That's how it's spiritual work. We're eternal beings. So the way I look at it is, the sooner I euthanize, the sooner I can come back. I've got better things to do with my time than to hang out and spend the next 15, 20 years on death row or in any prison system.
In a strange turn of events, Lorenzo actually asked the judge for the death penalty, saying that the sooner he can be put to death, the sooner he can be reincarnated in a new body. The judge later granted his wish and sentenced Lorenzo to death. This is Neil Simpson, who is standing trial for the murder of pizza shop owner Dave Kowalczyk. In June 2007, a horrifying event occurred where Simpson walked into Granny D's Pizza, jumped over the counter, and shot the shop owner to death. He managed to escape with a handful cash. It didn't take long for the police to identify and arrest Simpson, leading to his arrest for 2 counts each of aggravated murder, aggravated robbery, and murder. But when it came to trial, Simpson didn't like the idea of spending the rest of his life behind bars and instead requested the death penalty, even going into detail about how he would like to be murdered.
I didn't kill anyone. I'm not spending the rest of my life in prison for something I didn't do. 2 ways I prefer to be murdered. 1, to be crucified from the courthouse for all the sins, all the convicts throughout the world. And the other way would be stoned to death by the victim's family. And that make them feel better.
Despite the passionate speech from Simpson, the jury and ultimately the judge were unconvinced and decided to sentence Simpson to a lifetime behind bars without the possibility of parole. This is Scott Dozier, who is standing trial for the murder of 22-year-old Jeremiah Miller. On April 18, 2002, Jeremiah Miller met Dozier at a motel on the Las Vegas Strip. Dozier had promised to help Miller buy ingredients to produce methamphetamine. Upon Miller's arrival at the motel, Dozier killed him, sawed his body into multiple pieces, and disposed of it near an apartment complex in western Las Vegas. The suitcase was discovered by a worker the following week, and Dozier was arrested on June 25, 2002. Dozier received a 22-year sentence in 2005 for killing Green, but it seemed Dozier wanted more than that, and he made a shocking request from the judge.
My outlook on this is that personally, I'm not that concerned with it. I think once they get started, they're going to get it done one way or another. It's ideally it'd not be terrible and painful, but if it is, I'm kind of committed at that point.
So there's nothing that's occurred in the last year, including discussions about the drugs, the efficacy of the drugs, whether they have the drugs, whether the drugs used in other states have had problematic, perhaps painful or protracted executions. That has not dissuaded you from asking me to sign this warrant in this order?
It is not. Your Honor, all the people that have dead, that's my goal here.
Are you sure this is what you wish me to do?
I am, yes, 100% sure.
Although Dozier spent years begging the judge to approve his death sentence, on January 5th, 2019, prison guards at Ely State Prison found Dozier hanging from an air vent in his death row cell. He was pronounced dead at the scene. This is David Russ, and he's standing trial for the murder of Madeline Linen. Back in 2007, Russ had broke into her home, hog-tied her, and then stabbed her and strangled her to death in her own bathroom. Russ was later caught and charged with murder, but what could have turned into a lengthy trial was cut short when Russ began to ask for something that no one expected.
I'm not going to put the victims' family members through that. I'm not going to put anybody through that. I just don't feel it's fair to them. I've taken ownership from day one. Just as the victim stood vulnerable, I stand vulnerable. I do not wish any mitigation to be presented on my behalf.
In an unexpected turn of events, Russ claims that he doesn't want to put the family members through any more pain and actually asks the judge to be granted the death penalty. The judge said that she could have chosen life without parole, but because of the aggravating circumstances of this murder, she elected to give him death. This is Wayne Dodie, and he is on trial for the murder of 21-year-old fellow inmate Xavier Rodriguez. Dodie was sentenced to death after he pleaded guilty to killing Xavier Rodriguez, a fellow inmate he stabbed and strangled to death while he was serving a life sentence for the fatal shooting of Harvey Horn II. But after being sentenced to death, it turned out that Dodie has been thinking carefully about how he would like to be killed and begged the judge to grant his request.
An individual has the right to choose their own destiny. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, I'm the one that murdered the individual, not you, not anybody else. So it's my life, it's my crime, it's my means of execution. It's just my right to bring closure to the victim's family. If something happens where capital punishment is thrown out, which could possibly happen in the upcoming foreseeable future, that's not my problem.
The jury later unanimously voted to sentence him to death, and although Florida has yet to set Dodie's execution date, Dodie is the only inmate on Florida's death row who has chosen the electric chair over lethal injection as the preferred method of execution. This is Peter Absu, who is standing trial for the 2010 murders of Kevin Powell, 52, and Stephen Adams, 47, in Wilton Manors. Absu, now 37, met the two men through personal advertising on Craigslist seeking an older, established male partner. Powell and Adams took him into their Wilton Manors home in 2010. Their brutally beaten and bullet-riddled bodies were discovered just before Christmas. Their car and credit cards were missing, according to the evidence. In 2017, he was convicted and sentenced to death, but the decision was overturned by the Florida Supreme Court, which tossed it based on a technicality involving testimony by his mother that was ruled inadmissible. But later on, when it went to a retrial, Absu had some shocking words for the judge.
I have nothing to lose. You guys, there is absolutely nothing that can hurt me now. I have no consequences for my actions, and I plan on hurting people. I wholeheartedly have nothing to lose, and I'm going to take it out on everybody I can.
Is there a reason you just want to throw everything away and not have a life? I mean,
What is a life in prison?
Well,
There is
life.
none. There is none. I'd rather just kill people. It's much easier. Be by myself. If I'm by myself, I can't hurt people. But it's really easy to talk somebody into teaching them jiu-jitsu, putting them in a choke, and just holding on too long. And there's nothing they can do about it. Only takes about 6 seconds.
Despite his shocking words after his trial was over, the jury eventually came back with a unanimous decision for execution, putting him back on death row where he so wanted to remain.